AAM, a creepy customer complained my employees aren't friendly enough, concluded.
I am not the op, this is a repost sub. First post, May 25, 2021. I am a hospitality director for a winery. A valued guest, Bartholomew, called, saying that he hated to do it because he loves our wines, but that he would like to quit his membership. He said that the last time he visited, one of the employees was quite rude to him, and in prior visits he wasn't treated that well, either. I was dubious because I have excellent staff who go above and beyond for all of our guests. Typically, staff in a tasting room are well educated and in the business because it's a love, and certainly not to make the big bucks. Wineries are notorious for low wages. It's rare to get a legitimate complaint of this manner. In the 2 years I've managed this staff, we've had 2 complaints, in both of which the customers were way out of line, which often happens when alcohol is involved. Bartholomew named a specific employee. She said that while standing at the counter, he moved his mask down because his glasses were fogging up, and the employee shouted at him that he had to put the mask back on. He felt that there were nicer ways to say that. He was told where he could sit and then had to wait a long time for the wine tasting to be brought to the table. Virtually nothing was said about the wines, and the employee never came back until he and his guests stood up to leave. He said that on prior visits he's been treated indifferently and did not feel welcomed at all, and felt that he was more of a burden. While not making excuses for the employee, I told him that I did want him to understand that mask wearing is a constant battle and that niceties left ages ago. However, the employee should not have shouted at him. And unfortunately, the specific hour he visited is the witching hour for our business, and sometimes tastings go awry. Again, the employee should not have ignored him. I offered to personally do a private tasting for him the next time he visited, typically a high-value experience. The conversation was jovial and ended on a positive note. An hour later, Bartholomew called back and said that he wanted to reinstate his membership, though he did not speak to me. Just as I was congratulating myself on my superior customer service skills, one of my employees says, "Just so you know, this guy is super creepy."
When asked why, the employee, young, cute, married, said that another employee, young, cute, unmarried, refuses to be alone with him. In an informal, impromptu meeting, I asked all of the women about him, without giving a reason why. One employee said she started wearing a fake engagement ring so he'd leave her alone. One time, an employee walked into the tasting room to find him with half his shirt off, showing off a scar to another unrelated female guest. Another employee, 50 plus, attractive, married, said it wasn't so much what he said, but that there were always tones of sexual overtures. As we're having this meeting, a brand new employee, first day with us, walked in, heard a snippet and said, "Oh, are you talking about creepy Bartholomew? We had problems with him at my last winery. What the hell do I do now?" I absolutely cannot ask the staff to serve someone who makes them that uncomfortable. I'm not worried for myself because I know how to shut that behavior down pretty quickly. Given all this information from the staff, I now see why he didn't feel welcomed when he visited. So I'm not sure how to discipline or even if I should. A male colleague, who I had previously respected, said, "They're professionals. They need to put that aside and serve him, and that I should chat with the customer to let him know he needs to behave around these women." I inherently disagree with this assessment. We do not have any male employees who I could otherwise assign to the customer. We have a male owner, but he doesn't really do tastings, although certainly can. The customer is 5,560, unmarried, and former military, hence the scar display. Allison's advice is at the same link. Update, December 14, 2021. This incident gave me the opportunity for some personal reflection because I realized that I was part of the problem, which took me by surprise. I vaguely recalled when the employee told me about what happened with this customer and her deciding to wear a wedding band to protect herself. I remembered saying something to the effect of, "Yeah, that happens to women in the tasting room sometimes," and moved on. I'm 46 years old, which means that when I entered the workforce, sexual harassment, especially from customers, was frankly acceptable. And who was I going to complain to? In my first letter, I didn't mention that my former colleague also said that women just needed to turn sexual harassment to their advantage to increase sales. This is the kind of man that I have worked with over the course of the many years of my career. For example, at one of my jobs, there was a limo driver who liked me and gave me a pat on the bottom on his way out the door. It was a well-known fact. And the attitude was, "What's a little pat on the bottom if he keeps bringing good customers to us?" I talked to other women my age and older. They confirmed the same experiences. I always thought of myself as a good feminist and role model for young women. I was deeply ashamed of myself that I accepted sexual harassment as a normal part of working in hospitality and expected everyone else to as well. I called an emergency meeting with our owner and our other female manager. I'm very lucky because I have a forward-thinking boss, and he agreed that this behavior would not be tolerated. We discussed how to best to deal with this customer. We were all in agreement that Creepy Bart was no longer going to be a customer with us. We were also in agreement that despite this, we felt a phone call to him to tell him he was no longer welcome wasn't the best course of action. Given that I had just begged him to remain a member and the specific incident happened so long ago, we quietly canceled his membership and removed him from all mailing lists, knowing that he wouldn't miss what he didn't see. If he called me for an appointment, I would let him know at that time his behavior was unacceptable, and he would not be welcome in our tasting room. We then talked with the employee to make sure she was okay with this or if there was something else she wanted us to do. She was happy with this strategy and thanked us for taking care of this. We then called an emergency meeting with the entire staff and informed them of our decision. Additionally, should Creepy Bart come back without an appointment, our owner would take care of him and let him know that he was not welcome. I apologized to the staff for my apathy with regard to this incident and any others that I treated with the same disregard. We talked about the importance of them letting a manager know when an incident like this happens, and we can deal with it in the moment. I also promised that going forward, any incident like this would receive my full attention and it would be handled appropriately. I hope my feminist sisters can forgive my lapse in judgment. As for the former colleague, I decided that I no longer wished to maintain any kind of relationship with him. Fortunately, our paths don't cross anymore, so it shouldn't be an issue. I also decided that I was not going to try to educate him. If, in this day and age, he still had that attitude, there would be no changing his mind. As my stepfather has frequently said, some people are like cement, all mixed up and permanently set.
Thank you to everyone who commented. This site is so valuable and has completely changed my professional life, probably my personal life, too. /good on the op, the other manager and their boss for backing up their employees in this. The customer isn't always right, and this is an excellent reminder that SA should not be tolerated to try and make money.
I'm so impressed that OP was able to take a step back, look at her own previous experiences and realize they weren't okay, and dedicate herself to making a better workplace for her younger coworkers. So glad OP took steps to change her mindset and address this properly. And so glad her employer backed her up. It's wonderful to see the things are moving in the right direction. Single quote.
Great that businesses are evolving in the right direction.
I'm heavily involved in my local chapter of the Pink Boots Society, which is an organization for women in pretty much all fermented beverage spaces. Started out as beer only but is open to wine, cider, etc. I don't want to say all of us have stories like this, but it's damn near close. If we're lucky, and then we're in a no-asshole space. I am, thankfully. But a lot of us have been told to leave it be and not make a fuss. It's so much better than it used to be, but it's still a long way to go. There's a line that working in the alcohol industry makes people feel more comfortable crossing. Because you can chalk it up to being inebriated as if that's an excuse. Good on OOP for having her employees back and doing the self-reflection needed for change. What a refreshing update. In a world filled with so much blatant misogyny, it's nice to see a manager who supports her employees and doesn't expect them to just suck it up and deal with it. This reminds me of a man in my town in the 1990s who was blacklisted from a local bank because he sexually harassed the tellers. He was indignant. He was so mad that he went to the local newspaper to tell his story. They were gracious enough to let him do so, and consequently bury himself. His side of the story was that he had always treated bank tellers that way. So why should he stop now? I'm not kidding. This was his defense. According to him, he had always sexually harassed these women and he was outraged because a new teller was brave enough to finally speak up. And management actually listened.
Some dudes just flat out refuse to see women as actual human beings. The bank never let him return, LOL.
This is one where the reader comments are worth diving into. As expected from a Bart, you never hear of a board acting like this. My own mom has apologized to me for not taking my being sexually harassed more seriously at the time. It's sad so many women were raised in times that men crossing so many obvious boundaries and making them visibly uncomfortable was normalized. It was never okay. I must have a low bar. Because I'm always super impressed when a boss is willing to apologize to their staff and make improvements for their well-being. Too often bosses aren't willing to make changes. Or aren't able if owners or corporate won't let them. And if they are willing to make changes, it's even more rare it will come with an apology. I think it also speaks volumes about the expectations and experience of servers when it comes to this type of behavior. None of them thought to bring this to the attention to any manager or owner. Most have probably dealt with it at previous jobs, in other aspects of life, or have witnessed these types of behaviors enough to think it is a waste of time to make a fuss or even mention. And they're often correct that at a lot of establishments it would be a waste of time to complain about. I'm sure OOP is right that sexual harassment was more normalized when she was younger. I am glad there has been improvements since then. But it does suck that it is still normalized to the degree that it's at now. I've been harassed to some degree or witnessed some type of harassment at every type of customer service job I've had. But serving really seems have a higher prevalence of these incidents in my own experience. Pretty much every server, bartender I know, no matter if they're a woman or a man, has been harassed before. Man, there are so many problems with harassment at work. I have to explicitly tell our youngest staff members that any harassment needs to be reported, and we do actually listen and act on it, because most have worked so many places where casual harassment is the norm. I had to convince a coworker to submit a report because a regular customer had been pestering her for 15 minutes, including asking which car in the staff lot was hers. She was like, "It's not that bad. I've had so much worse." Quote, I made her email our manager, who will tell her to make a report. But she was going to just accept it, because her other jobs wouldn't have supported her or would have penalized her. Some people are like cement, all mixed up and permanently set. Oh, I like this saying. I'm similar age to Oop and also started work totally ignoring harassment and using it to my advantage in the tipping industry, waiting tables and coat check. Now I'm an HR consultant to small businesses. This kind of situation is something I've seen a few times. With the manager not getting it, then realizing, to me, this is wonderful and what we need. This is a well-intentioned person who has been letting things happen because that's how life works. Then realizes it's wrong. This is the place where real change is made. You know how people say that when you stand by and do nothing you're just as liable. You know how so many of our problems can be vastly improved if well-intentioned people would get involved? This is that. This is one more good light bulb flicking on. One more average person going from thinking they're doing good to actually doing good. And in the process, people around them learn more about their rights and how to stand up for them. It may sound dumb, especially to a young Reddit group who thinks everyone knows what sexual harassment is and how to deal with it. It's not, and it's common. If just the people who think they're good folk actually do the right thing, like in this situation, it can make a massive change. I am also of the generation who tended to accept some level of inappropriate behavior as just being normal. I, however, tended to put them neatly in their place by, for want of another term, outdoing them, fast, witty, and just slightly above them. Shut them down. But I just had a talent for this. Most of my coworkers over the years didn't. I'd shut it down for them. And, in supervisory positions, absolutely never tolerated it for my staff, and refused to work for someone who did. When I became the boss, you bet your smacked ass that I had zero tolerance. My mother is in OP's generation and I'm close to 40. She got mad when I slapped a grown man's hand off my ass last year. I apparently should have not made a scene. He was just being friendly. Man's lucky I didn't punch him in the groin. It's good that Oop is doing some reflecting and making changes to be a better person. Now she needs to do some reflecting on why she accepts that wineries don't pay their employees a living wage. They need to put that aside and serve him. Congratulations, asshole. You are now the only employee who will ever serve creepy Bartholomew. Jackass. We have a handful of male clients at our business with notes on their profiles that they are to only be accommodated by a strong male presence or something similar. If you're wondering why we tolerate them at all, that's a decision made over my head. I don't like Op's statements that the coworker will never learn. She clearly had her epiphany, and while I heavily dislike the coworker and his statements he should be given the same opportunity to learn. He asks seems like he himself might be a danger to staff. It really depends on having ownership support you. When I was a 15-year-old fast food manager, I 86 ed a longtime customer and friend of the owner's husband for inappropriate behavior towards our female staff. He ran to the husband to complain, but didn't get the response he thought he would. The owners loved me, so the husband asked the DBAG why I kicked him out. And when the reason came out, they not only backed me, they kicked him out of the bar they owned as well. Is anyone else wondering why all of the floor employees are women?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.